He skipped out on me last week, but he's back. We call it the Chop Zone. Spinner Howland joining me back in studio here to talk a little bit about USA Rugby League action as well as big news in the world of International Rugby League. We'll get into that here in just a few moments. What's going on tonight,
mate? I had things to see and people to do. All right, so let's just leave it at that. But mate, what's going on around here? I walked into the studio tonight. First of all, as I'm walking in, a pretty girl offers me pizza.
Yeah.
So the Helmets and Heels girls were here, obviously. And I
It
know
wasn't me.
I know. Look, I know that you guys get the questions all the time. I hear you guys on the radio. I listen all day long. So yes, I can verify as an independent contractor that they are very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
And the fact that they offered me pizza, which I didn't take because I'm trying to watch what I eat at the moment. And then I come into the studio and there's new chairs.
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
I don't know. It was
Man, I like it.
Somebody much higher up than me finally complained.
About
the state of the chairs.
So someone like 5'10" or something. You know,
Yeah. Anybody else that works here.
Boom, yeah.
Right. Somebody just with more decision-making power than me. No, I don't know. The chairs changed last week, I want to say. Was the first week with the new chairs.
I like them.
It is nice. They we don't have like we had a chair in here that was on like a 60-degree angle when you sat on it. So you'd be half standing. Like you'd have to...
I know this chair.
Yeah, you
I've sat in
switch
this
legs
chair.
in the middle of the show. It's like working out. You know, it's less like sitting and more like working out. And you don't want to have to... You're not wanting to work on legs when you're trying to talk. Like, that's not something that you want to do, generally.
It could be distracting.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
Just a little bit. I know the conference championships last weekend...
Yes.
Around USA Rugby League. Unfortunately for the Axemen, not a part of it this year. As far as conference championships, they get put out the week before in the playoffs. But a couple very interesting matchups last weekend, and something that we've never seen before in Rugby League coming up.
Mate, absolutely. Look, the Axemen did get bumped out. Central Florida Warriors took care of them quite handily, 3 weeks ago down in DeLand, 44-14, and the Atlanta Rhinos handled the Tampa Mayhem up in Atlanta. So it led for a great matchup. Two expansion teams, both only in their second year of competition. One from Atlanta, one from Central Florida. They encompass kind of the Daytona Beach, Orlando area and home ground there at Spec Martin in DeLand. And it was everything it was deemed to be. It really brought out. There had to be 70 or 80 people from Atlanta come down. Mm-hmm. I know that the hotel that the team stayed in was actually sold out.
Nice.
It was unbelievable. All the fans come down there, and they were very vocal during the game. And it was everything as billed. It was tough. It was hard. It was fast. The defense at times was nothing short of brutal. Guys leaving their feet. Guys being cut in half. And again, it come down to a scoreline of 32-28. Only 4 points separated the team after 80 minutes, and the Atlanta Rhinos just narrowly getting over the Central Florida Warriors. So that pushes the Atlanta Rhinos into the national championship game. They will represent the South here at UNF on August 29th, and they will take on the Boston 13s, who faced off against the perennial powerhouse, the Philadelphia Fight. Again,
they took out Philly.
Mate, they took out Philly. Again, a close game, 20-12, a relatively low-scoring game. And from all reports I'm hearing up there, again, another brutal affair. I've been hearing some reports that some guys are carrying a few small injuries. So, look, from the southern point of view, I hope they don't get over those injuries very quickly. Mm-hmm. But, mate, it'll be a great billing. So it's two new teams vying for the championship. So since 2010, we will have a new national champion. So since 2010, it's either been the Axemen or the Philadelphia Fight have been the national champions.
Right.
And I think that's great for the growth of the game. I think it's fantastic that the Atlanta Rhinos, in only their second year of operations, have managed to get through to the big dance. And what's more importantly, they've done it without any import players. They don't have a single player that was brought over from Australia or the UK to help that team progress from a playing standpoint. They do have some foreign players, but all of their foreign players live here in the United States. They're either on some sort of, student visa or they have their green card. So
Sure.
All the players are residents of the US, no imports. So for them to do that is nothing short of miraculous, really, when you think about it, the number of foreign players that are floating around in a few of the other teams. So a huge congratulations to them. You've got their title sponsor, Killcliff. They've been with the team since day one, so 2 consistent years. They're ecstatic about it. So, mate, it's going to be a fantastic day at UNF. Again, August 29th. And it really is kind of the north-south matchup. It's Boston and Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, 2 teams that I think over the years in a number of different sports could have had a pretty significant rivalry.
No doubt about it. And look, talking about last weekend's action, getting ready for the national championship. I know you went to all the Axemen games this year. Was Saturday, that Southern Conference Championship, was that the best game you saw this year?
Yeah. Yeah, no, without a doubt. I'm not going to lie about that. It was 2 teams that absolutely wanted it. They so badly wanted to be in there. Look, 2 years in a league and you have a chance to go to the national championship. And the truth is that I think Atlanta showed up. They had a bit of a game plan. They've obviously watched a fair bit of film. And at parts of the game, the Warriors really dug their heels in. A couple of their players stuck out to me in the way they handled their defense. They really found that extra effort. Mm-hmm. But as an overall game, the Atlanta Rhinos just wanted it more. They made less mistakes. They were, and not saying you used the word cautious, but they were very controlled and composed. They weren't trying to push passes. They weren't trying to do anything where they would cause mistakes. And at times the Warriors did get a little bit flamboyant, which at times they can. They do have the personnel for that kind of play. But again, it didn't come together for them at times. They dropped the ball. They made some mistakes, missed a few tackles. But for it to come down to a 4-point game, it could have been the bounce of a ball in any way.
Sure.
But definitely a game where they made more mistakes than they had done throughout the entire season. And without a doubt, the Atlanta Rhinos left their best game to be played last weekend. They were absolutely on fire.
Well, 4 points, it's clearly a one-possession game. And want to get into all of the festivities surrounding the national championship coming up, because there is some cool stuff for fans to go out there. Maybe the coolest thing going on is going to happen before the national championship game, and we'll get into that in just a moment. I want to talk about the World Cup qualifiers coming, which is something that we've kind of known for a while but haven't been able to talk about it really until this week's spinner. Before we get into any of that, though, this is just the rugby fan ignorance in me asking a question. I know with soccer, right, that in the big tournaments, they will have times where you're playing 2 games, a home and an away game, as kind of a leg, right? And an aggregate score, that kind of thing. Does rugby do anything like that? Has rugby league here in the United States considered anything like that as far as the championship path is concerned?
No, not really, especially within the US at the moment. First of all, it comes down to budget. The more teams travel around, the more the budget increases. So it's more of a financial constraint than anything else. But the truth is that the game itself, the historical and sort of the culture within the sport is, mate, you get that one shot. You get your shot at winning. At some of the elite levels, there are, as when it comes down to playoffs, you have a system where, the top team gets a bye. You can sort of lose your first one and still have a crack at it later on.
Sure.
But, mate, at the moment in the US, we're down to the fact that it's definitely a financial challenge, budget-wise, for a number of teams to travel any more than they do, to play any more games than they do until TV comes along. To be quite honest, TV is the ultimate goal for any sport. Once you can get on television, whether it's local, regional, or national, that's when your viewership goes from, like, let's say we put 3,000 people in a stadium locally. You get on even a small TV station in Northeast Florida, and all of a sudden you've got 30,000 people potentially watching it.
Sure.
It could be seen in a sports bar. It could be seen in a variety of sort of organic places where someone's just watching a television. Oh, what's that crazy game that's going on? Well, that's actually rugby league. You go see it here locally. So once you can sort of get on the television audience a little bit more, I think things may change as far as when we look at how many games are played, how long the season is, and what the playoff structure may look like. From the World Cup qualifier standpoint, once again, it was a bid system where we're bringing 3 teams. Obviously, you still have to assemble the US national team here in Jacksonville, which means guys flying in from all over the country. Mm-hmm. So there's a substantial cost there. Then you're bringing a team from Jamaica and a team from Canada. So we've now got 75 athletes, plus probably another 25 coaching administrative staff. So we've got 100 people in town that are just related to the teams themselves. You've got ground transportation, you've got airfare, you've got hotel accommodations, you've got meals, you've got training facilities, you've got rehabilitation.
Sure.
So when you look at the financial burden on an event like that, mate, you sort of... I hate to use the word kind of the one and done event, because we like to see these things happen more frequently, but you kind of need to get in the 12 days, get them done, and winner take all.
Sure. And look, it obviously works for football, right? So you don't need series to make it work, especially with sports as heavy on contact as rugby and football would be. So I just didn't know if internationally they did.
Mate, could you imagine playing a best of 7?
Oh my god!
To be the champ, there'd be nothing left. You'd be down to the fourth string backups.
And just the rage between two teams that have played each other 7 times in a row in that kind of sport.
Oh mate, it
would be
within
bloody.
The first 3 minutes there'd be a punch up.
Yeah, it would be awful. But do want to get into Spinner Howland joining me here on the Chop Zone, and want to get into what is coming here to Jacksonville. Not only here in a couple of weeks, but down the road in December as well. And really the event in a couple of weeks leading up to what's coming in December with World Cup qualifiers, as we are going to have a North v South Team USA, what we're calling a selection game. I know some Axemen are going to be participating in that game as well, but that's going to be before the National Championship coming up a week from Saturday.
Yeah, mate, look, so August 29th is the National Championship, like we just spoke about. Atlanta Rhinos, Boston 13s. By far going to be the best game of rugby league in the country, as all national championships should be. Prior to that, and a part of the event, so 2 hours before the National Championship, we have split the North Conference and the South Conference and selected all of the elite players that are vying for a spot on Team USA. And the national team for the United States, the USA Hawks. And it is a selection game. The only way to truly tell if you have a player that is worthy to wear the nation's flag as a jersey and go out and compete is to put them out against one another. We've held combines in all 3 divisions. All the guys are on strength and conditioning programs right now, working on some tutelage of a couple of high-end strength and conditioning coaches. They're having daily workouts. Okay, now let's get on the paddock and let them get at one another. And it is almost to the point where you could put a North-South team together and recreate that nation versus nation, where you're looking across the halfway line before kickoff at the guy that's trying to take your spot. Mm-hmm. The guy I'm looking at over there wants to stop me from playing for my country. So we expect nothing less than 110% for all 80 minutes from these guys. The South, obviously, with the Atlanta Rhinos in the National Championship game, the South team will comprise of Axemen players, Central Florida Warrior players, and Tampa Mayhem players. And with Boston in from the north, the remaining teams from up north, the best of the best from up there, will be put in the North team. And we have no doubts that these guys will show up here in Jacksonville with nothing less than absolute commitment to get the USA flag on their back to go and play for the USA Hawks.
Yeah, so, it's a really cool event, especially for fans of rugby here on the First Coast who have been supporting the Axemen over the years. And look, if you've been looking for a foot in the door on rugby, you have a chance to go see basically the building blocks for an international team, which will be coming back here in December. I know a lot of work to be done between not only that North v South game here in a couple weeks, between then and December, trying to put together the pieces that they want on this roster. Do you have a general idea of kind of the timetable of when they want to announce who's going to be on the team? Is there going to be further tryouts from that date going forward? How's that going to work?
Absolutely. So obviously from this game, we'll probably pick 20 players. We do have 2 internationals lined up with Canada. I think they'll both be played in Philadelphia or somewhere in the north, obviously due to logistics. And again, come down to budget. You know, it's a lot less expensive for Canada to get into the northeast than it is to come down to Florida. But we need 20 players for the first game, and you'll put them out there. Canada's obviously going to do the same thing. They'll select 20, and you'll take a look at what you've got. If players aren't performing in that first game, you replace them with the next man up, and it could be a complete new 20. More than likely, as you know, 5 or 6 are probably not performing where you want them to, so 5 or 6 more guys will be added to the squad, and you get a crack at looking at them as well. When it comes down to the World Cup qualifiers, and I know you sort of already, you definitely let the cat out of the bag there, as I've sort of been alluding to you for the last month. Look, the World Cup qualifiers are coming to Florida It's definitely a coup for us, for the USA Rugby League, to have them here,
Cool.
definitely in Northeast Florida. But you would probably like to say by November, you kind of want your 25-man roster. These are the guys that you'll bring into camp, and these are the guys that you absolutely believe from this you'll select your teams to play Canada and Jamaica. So early September for the first round of internationals against Canada, and then early November you'd kind of want to be putting pen down instead of pencil down on paper.
Sure. And do we have an idea of how much training opportunity they're going to have before the qualifiers in December? If that's going to be something that's going to be here in Northeast Florida as well? Would it be something that maybe the public would be allowed to go in and watch some of the training? What's going to go on?
Mate, without a doubt, we're a very open organisation, especially once the teams get into Florida. So the teams will probably arrive, I think at this stage, looks like November 30th. I know that Canada and the US will be here by November 30th because they play the first game at UNF. That first game will be on December 4th, a Friday night, so Friday night football. And Canada will arrive the day after because they don't play their first game till midweek. But other than the sessions where the coach sort of closes things down completely, there will be a number of practice sessions that will be open to the public. If they want to come out and watch the guys run through their paces, there's certainly no issue with that. Obviously, look, we're not as closed as the NFL. We're not going to put the fences up and, hey, no one can come in here. We would really like the public to come out and get to know some of the players on the USA team. And again, just like we do in the domestic competition, after each game, there will be a public meet and greet. There will essentially be a social outing. We hope to get a number of venues available to us. But you can come and hang out with the guys. And I'm not saying many of them will be drinking beers, obviously, at that level. But you can come out, meet them. They'll have a feed with you. They'll sit down. They'll talk to you. They'll get to know you. You'll get to know them.
Sure.
We really want these teams to come into Jacksonville and leave a mark, not only from their sporting prowess, but from a community standpoint.
Yeah.
We need them. If you're going to grow a sport at any level, if you want the public and the fans, when it comes 2017 and the Rugby League World Cup is being played in Australia and in New Zealand, the only way that the domestic USA fan is going to seek out and find, and we imagine that it will be on television by that stage. We imagine they'll get a deal done. There's talks of that already. But the only way people are going to watch that is if they're going to find it. And the only way to go find it is if they have a personal connection. So we want the guys and Team USA to get to meet and shake hands and say good day to as many people in Jacksonville as they can while they're here.
Yeah, and that's obviously a ways off on the calendar as far as those guys actually being here and playing. Your chance to go see basically a tryout game in a couple weeks on Saturday before the national championship game here in Jacksonville, and that'll be at the normal time, 5:30 for the national championship.
It'll be
game.
5 o'clock kickoff for the North-South game,
okay,
and a 7 o'clock kickoff for the national championship. But it's all one price. Look, if you want to get, if you want to get the early bird tickets, we do have cheaper tickets up at the moment at the Axemen website. I think they're using Eventbrite. I think if you go to Eventbrite and type in Rugby Jacksonville, I'm quite sure it's the only event that's going to come up. But even on game day, show up at the gate. It's $10 to get in. And you will get to see the two most elite levels of rugby league in the USA. And I can absolutely confirm to the local people that there will be 5 Jacksonville Axemen on the team, without any doubt, under the Axemen banner. And on top of that, there will be 4 guys that were Axemen that are now playing for the Central Florida Warriors.
Cool.
Have also been selected. So the Warriors obviously have had a fantastic season. They're actually going to get 8 guys through into the South team. The Axemen got 5, and the remainder come from the Tampa team. So there's plenty of familiar faces, plenty of reason for the fans to come out and say, I know so-and-so is a great player. I'd like to support him in trying to pull the Stars and Stripes on as a jersey someday.
Yeah, and very cool stuff coming up here in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida. If you are a fan of rugby, if you want to check it out, obviously some cool events coming to Jacksonville. And we'll be in touch over the course of the next several months. Spinner, any news that comes out, let me know. I'll let the people know when you get that to me so that we can keep them informed on what's coming up and when they can go check out Team USA. Before we let you go, though, I'm going to talk a little bit about week 1 of the preseason coming up here in about 10-15 minutes and some of the things that I noticed. But I did see this storyline. For rugby fans here in the U.S., you've probably been paying attention to what's going on with Jarryd Hayne anyway. out there with San Francisco and the 49ers as a rugby guy trying to make the transition to the National Football League.
Mate, he was the top trending topic on Twitter in Australia during the 49ers game.
I was watching the game with my roommate. Right?
Yeah.
We just had the 49ers game on, and I'm watching the game with my roommate. And when he busted the big run, the 30-yard run, 33 yards, I can't remember.
His big run was a 53-yarder.
Yeah. But when he busted that run, I'm sitting there watching the game with my roommate. And my roommate's like, he runs kind of weird. And
he runs upright.
I'm like, he runs like a rugby guy, wouldn't you say? And he's like, yeah, he kind of does. And I was like, it's because he is. That guy is a rugby guy. I was like, that's where he made his bones. And he's trying to do the NFL thing now, too. Really impressive looking out there for him.
Mate, look, the best thing that all of rugby supporters, and I don't care what code you're from, look, rugby union, rugby league, in the US the word rugby gets mentioned and everyone sort of just, it's all a melting pot, is to support Jarryd Hayne in his efforts to get in the NFL. The guy gave up, a $1 million contract playing in Australia to come and chase a dream. He wanted to play in the NFL. And I know that a lot of people are looking at him as kind of the experiment, but after watching him play, and look, I'm not going to jump in the bandwagon and say, oh, he's going to make it, he's the best thing. He was the leading rusher in all three categories. Yeah, you know what? Beginner's luck, maybe. Yes, he's a fantastic athlete, but you have to like his chances at this stage. The one thing, look, I watched every part of that game. I didn't get to see it live, but I watched every part of it, especially the part that he was in. And I wonder if the coach took him aside. Did you notice what he did in his 53-yard rush at the end? The one thing that they tell football players not to do.
What's that?
He changed hands with the ball.
Yes, he did.
He was carrying the ball in the right arm, and he was in the left. He put it in the right, sidesteps the guy and pushes him away, and then as he sees pressure coming over his shoulder, he put it back in the left hand at full sprint to be able to fend off. But his ball handling skills are well above anybody in the National Football League. I mean, he plays a game where you constantly have to handle, manipulate, pass, catch, kick a ball that's larger than a football. He'll feel very comfortable with gloves on, be able to tuck and run with it. And he literally just changed hands to fend the guy off. I'm like, man, you're going to get yelled at for that. But you absolutely got to like his chance at the moment. And the best thing that anyone can do if they want to see that the gap between the National Football League and Rugby League come closer is get out there and support Jarryd's efforts. And, mate, fingers crossed, I really hope he makes a roster.
Yeah, it was cool to watch him out there, and he did. He looks like a rugby player playing in the NFL, but he was an effective rugby player playing in the NFL, at least for one night, and hopefully that continues because it is a cool story and could open the doors for some of these guys. And really,
I'm not going to lie, mate, I'm jumping on the coattails. Right. Let's go.
Maybe open up the doors for rugby, too. Again, you talk about exposure. We talked about it a lot tonight with trying to get, USA RL on TV and these kinds of things. A guy like Jarryd Hayne can only help when they go to a Monday Night Football broadcast week one if he's on the team and they're saying this is a guy who gave up the opportunity to play rugby. It can only be good for you if those kind of stories are out there if you're a fan.
Absolutely. All it takes is him from a press conference to mention, oh, by the way, the sport I played is actually available in the US to say, USA Rugby League, mention the website. And a guy like that coming from his humble beginnings, I really doubt whether he'll forget where he comes from. I really think that he will always have that passion for the game. So, yeah, mate, good luck to him. And to give up the money he gave up to just go chase a dream, how do you not like that story? I mean, I'm not going to say it's the Vince Papale story because he didn't come off the streets of Philadelphia.
Sure.
But he literally walked in here never having played American football at all, other than just the fact of believing in his own athleticism, said, I'm going to give this a crack, and it looks like he's doing it right.
Yeah, and we'll monitor it as it goes forward. Spinner, I enjoyed it as always, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
If you want to come in again after the national championship game or next week, whenever you want to come in.
Yeah, I might slide in next week. Mate, I do have to mention, I'm absolutely remiss, and I feel bad. Mate, absolutely have to give a shout-out to Firehouse Subs for jumping on board with the World Cup qualifiers. I can tell you all right now that their title sponsorship of this event was absolutely the tipping point that got it for the United States. So a Jacksonville company, hands down, that was when I sent that email across to add onto the bid, they come back, righto, yeah, we can't compete with that, it's yours.
That's cool.
So, mate, shout out to everyone there at Firehouse. I appreciate the support.
All right, Spinner, we'll talk to you again here in the next couple weeks.
Thanks, mate.
All right, he is Spinner Howland. That was the Chop Zone. we'll take a look back at the national championship here in a couple of weeks, as well as what goes on with that North v South Team USA game before that, with 5 Axemen being invited to be a part of that South squad. When we return, the Jaguars wrapped up week 1 of the preseason on Friday nights. I will give you some of my thoughts coming out of that game, the big questions going into week 2 of the preseason for the Jags, maybe some questions I'm not sure I had going into week 1 that I now know I have going into week 2 for Jacksonville, as we continue along here on a Fat Tuesday on 1010XL 92.5 FM.